As we go to air tonight, fresh rounds of strikes have been launched at Gaza as Israel warns of a long and difficult war ahead. More than 700 Israelis and 400 Palestinians have been killed as 100,000 Israeli reserve troops mass at the border. 260 bodies were today found at the site of a music festival, officials calling the Hamas attack the most lethal assault against Jews since the Holocaust.
Sun rising over a packed dance festival. This is a party celebrating friendship and peace. Crowds unaware of the terror in the sky. Behind them, Hamas militants paragliding. Strange lights captured on this video before the clear sound of gunshots. Hordes of operatives stream into the event by car and foot, firing at anyone they could reach. An indiscriminate, frenzied attack. Gila Yoskovich ran for her life. She was with a friend.
At one point we got split. I came back to her, and then I saw her, they shoot her. And then I was hiding next to a tree, and they just shoot all the people around me. It was like 50 people in one time. I was just hiding quietly.
Others hid in bushes anywhere they could take cover as militants scoured the area looking for people to kidnap. Some attendees sheltered in a rainwater canal, finally rescued by Israeli police hours later. Those who were able to reach their cars were faced with horror as they tried to escape.
It's a festival for young people. Many people were dying in the road. Whoever tried to run away, they were shooting him from both sides.
The terrorists, they took out people from the car and just gunned them down.
Dashcam capturing a young man bloodied, being led away from the festival at gunpoint. Then, the aftermath. The scale of the massacre clear. Car after car abandoned and charred. Noah Agamani was also taken. She was pictured at an unknown location hours later. This was her father today.
What can I say? All my life, since she was born, I tried to protect her and hug her and support her and love her.
He's one of dozens of distraught parents whose children are now missing. A group of families holding a media conference today to plead for the government to do more.
She was talking to me and said, "Mommy, help us, we don't know what to do." And I'm on the phone with her and I'm saying, "Mommy, we love you, it's okay."
Yoni Ash's wife and daughters are some of the 100 abducted Israelis. He's made a direct plea to Hamas.
I want to ask of Hamas, don't hurt them. Don't hurt little children. Don't hurt women. If you want me instead, I'm willing to come.
Relatives streaming into police stations, giving their DNA to help with identification. North of the Gaza border, some hostages have been found. Released by militants after a gun battle with Israeli soldiers. Women, children and a baby pulled from cars and taken to safety.
What I can tell you is that we're not going to stop until we exhaust every means possible of doing so. We will not leave any person behind, and we will do anything to make that happen.
On another stretch of road, Israeli soldiers and Hamas fighters in a highway skirmish. One of dozens of battles across Israel, this was East Jerusalem at night. While further south, dozens of rockets were fired at Ashkelon, the Israeli dome intercepting some, but others made it through. This one lodged in the roof of this ravaged home. Here in Tel Aviv, this is where one of those long-range rockets fired by Hamas landed, striking an apartment building. You can see the unit on the top floor there has been wiped out. There's a washing machine and a dryer right on the edge, and debris has come showering down. Fortunately, we're told the occupants of this place weren't home when the rocket hit. Sharon Blatt lives in the building and was there when it hit.
I can't believe that it happened. It's just terrifying.
The days ahead will be long and difficult. We have paid a heavy price, but we will restore security to the people of Israel.
Many not waiting for that. Hundreds lining up at Tel Aviv's airport. The threat not just from Gaza, but also to Israel's north. Lebanese militant group Hezbollah firing artillery shells as Israeli troops move en masse. The aerial assault on Gaza, relentless. Locals running for their lives. Entire buildings filled by the onslaught. The United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees says more than 20,000 people have sought shelter in its schools around Gaza, fearing further escalation. Israel has warned residents to get out, but for most of the 2 million residents, there's nowhere to go. Power has been cut out by the Israeli government, making it hard for hospitals to treat victims. The first of many funerals held for those killed in the airstrikes. Children among the hundreds left dead. At this point, there are no known Australian casualties.
We urge Australians who are in Israel, if you have not done so, to please contact your families to assure us all of your safety.
The Prime Minister has been speaking to the Israeli ambassador on the ground.
We've provided political support for Israel, which is what the request has been at this time.
The Israeli military has vowed not to stop until it has taken full control of Gaza. Israelis lining the streets to farewell soldiers who will be sent over the border. More bloodshed on both sides, horribly inevitable. In Tel Aviv, Edward Godfrey, 9 News.
Let's go to Tel Aviv and Edward Godfrey. Edward, what's happening as we come to you?
Right, there's still a lot of fear and uncertainty here in Tel Aviv. The streets are very quiet, most people remaining indoors. We're at another building that was hit at the same time as that other apartment complex, which we just saw in that package. You can see here, once again, the apartment on the top floor there has been hit directly by a rocket. There are scorch marks on the side of the building, you can see, and a huge amount of debris has come crashing down. Once again, we're told everyone who lived in this apartment building has been moved into hotels for safety. South of where we are, fierce battling continues in at least 8 locations, and as for Gaza, well, that's only escalating. The Israeli Air Force has hit 500 targets in overnight attacks, Pete.
Edward Godfrey in Tel Aviv, thank you. Tonight, the effect of the Hamas assault is being felt around the world. Thousands of protesters from both sides of the conflict making their feelings known. Iran has been accused by some of helping plan the attack, a claim it denies.
A long way from the violence of the Middle East.
Shame on you! Shame on you!
Opposing sides of decades of tension make their voices heard. At Times Square in New York, one group applauding the festival attack.
Where they were having a great time until the resistance came in electrified hang gliders and took at least several dozen hipsters.
Ripple effects of anti-Israel sentiment in the streets of Canada and Germany's capital, Berlin. A swastika graffitied Israel's embassy in Colombia. Now, fresh concerns Iran may have been directly involved in the deadly bombardment of Israel. Senior members of Hamas claiming Iranian security officials helped plan the attack for weeks, giving it the green light in a meeting in Lebanon last Monday. Claims Iran denies.
We suspect that Iran is involved. Iran provides material support, funding, weapons to Hamas.
It's added to concerns intelligence failed. While the US and Israel did not have warning something was coming, this was Joe Biden's national security advisor a week ago.
And the Middle East region is quieter today than it has been in 2 decades.
But it wasn't, and the worry is Israel's far-right government was too focused on domestic issues, including reforming the country's legal system, and may have relied too heavily on high-tech defense, allowing Hamas to drive and fly through the cracks.
The focus is on helping Israel, making sure that it has what it needs to deal with this attack.
And help is on the way. An American carrier strike group consisting of the world's largest aircraft carrier, a guided missile cruiser, and destroyers will be sent to the eastern Mediterranean. The US also beefing up its fighter jets in the region. In Egypt, 2 Israeli tourists and their Egyptian tour guide shot dead, adding to fears the violence will spread beyond Israel and Gaza, including into neighboring Lebanon and Syria.
No one elsewhere should try to take advantage of this situation.
Americans are now among the dead, and there are fears some are being held hostage. Crisis talks have begun at the United Nations.
This is Israel's 9/11, and Israel will do everything to bring our sons and daughters back home.
This is a time to tell Israel it needs to change course.
The US believes a push for stable relations between the US, Saudi Arabia and Israel could have been a trigger for Hamas's surprise attack. Hopes of stability now lie in the ruins of war.
And it should be something that revolts the entire world.
US President Joe Biden has been in constant briefings with his national security team here at the White House, and once again talking today with Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, insisting nations need to stand together in the face of terror, and he vowed there would be more support for Israel in the days ahead. And tonight, an ominous warning for a region where for centuries peace has been difficult to find.
Whoever strikes Israel will strike back.
At the White House, Jonathan Kersley, 9 News.
Late this afternoon, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese called for pro-Palestinian rallies to be cancelled. Let's bring in reporter Liz Daniels, who's at Town Hall. Liz, it's pretty clear those calls are being ignored.
Well, Peter, it may have been too late. This crowd has been building for the last hour, filling here at Town Hall Square, flying pro-Palestinian flags. The leaders here have said they will continue to celebrate the Palestinian resistance. There is a heavy police presence keeping an eye on the crowd here and over at the Opera House, where the sails will be lit up in solidarity with Israel as soon as night falls. But just in the last couple of minutes, I've confirmed a memo has been sent from the Jewish Board of Deputies to the Jewish community, warning them to stay away from the city tonight amid security concerns as crowds grow. Red and green fireworks blasting from a ute window in suburban Western Sydney.
Live from Greenacre.
Weaving through traffic on Waterloo Road with Palestinian flags waving. A rallying cry echoing from Greenacre to Lakemba. There, a crowd hundreds strong gathered in response to attacks half a world away. Islamic leaders address the crowd.
I'm smiling and I'm happy. I'm elated. It's a day of courage. It's a day of pride. It's a day of victory.
The Sheikh's comments this morning left Jewish leaders distressed.
It was quite sickening. You know, these people have seen the same footage that we've seen of soldiers going door to door, hunting Jews, massacring civilians, snatching children from the hands of their parents, and they see this as a cause to rejoice. It's truly devastating and sickening to see such inhumanity in our midst.
As the community grapples with the scale of loss.
The single deadliest day in terms of loss of human life since the Holocaust.
Scenes from Lakemba condemned by national leaders.
There's nothing to celebrate by the murder of innocent civilians going about their day.
The targeting of civilians and the taking of hostages is never a cause for celebration.
If people are inciting any violence towards the Jewish community here in Australia, they should face the full force of the Australian law.
But the acting Premier refused to join the rebuke.
The police advised the government that there was generally well behaved.
Last night at Lakemba, officers did keep a distance, but are now investigating the fireworks incident amid calls for calm.
People of all faiths and of all backgrounds should be promoting that at the moment. We don't want to rip Sydney apart.
The Lebanese Muslim Association didn't want to speak publicly today for fear of stoking tensions, but leaders are planning to hold a prayer vigil here at Lakemba Mosque on Friday. Telling 9 News they believe the state and federal governments are being insensitive to the loss of Palestinian lives as 2 Sydney communities grieve. In Lakemba, Liz Daniels, 9 News.
Celebrations in Sydney following the Hamas attacks have drawn widespread condemnation. Police here in Melbourne are also considering boosting security for the Jewish community ahead of a gathering tonight. Dougal Beattie with the details.
On the streets of Western Sydney, hundreds gathered for celebrations following a human tragedy half a world away.
I'm smiling and I'm happy. I'm elated.
Sheikh Ibrahim Dadoun from the United Muslim Association addressing the crowd.
It's a day of pride. It's a day of victory.
But the condemnation was swift.
There's nothing to celebrate by the murder of innocent civilians.
The targeting of civilians and the taking of hostages is never a cause for celebration.
Members of the Australian Palestinian community also denouncing the Sydney rally and the Hamas attacks.
Well, I'm completely shattered. I say that as a human being first, but also as an Australian Palestinian. But I imagine for some Palestinians, they've got to the point now where they'd rather die on their feet than live on their knees.
Emily Gian moved from Melbourne to Israel with her husband and 3 children 3 months ago. Her family holed up in their basement as sirens wailed.
These terrorists were out on the loose. They have one thing in mind, and it's to kill Israelis.
Trying to keep calm with the country on edge.
In that sense, we don't feel safe because we don't know where they are. They could be anywhere.
Dr. Davir Abramovich from the Anti-Defamation Commission spent last night talking with his cousins, whose house was destroyed by a rocket and were confronted by armed men before they were rescued.
At the same time, they were hearing the screams of their neighbours who were being murdered by these terrorists and were taken hostage.
The Victorian government also stood in solidarity with Israel today, revealing the police minister has held a briefing with Victoria Police and the community over increased security measures.
They will do everything they can to ensure that the local Jewish community feels safe and secure here in Victoria.
Dougal Beattie, 9 News.
A pro-Israeli gathering will be held tonight in Caulfield North. Penelope Leash is there. Penny, hundreds have registered to attend.
Pete, community leaders are preparing to welcome at least 1,500 people here for the United with Israel event. They'll be hearing from Deputy Prime Minister Richard Marles, also Victorian politicians from both sides, Ben Carroll and John Pizzuto, as Melbourne lights up blue and white. Now, those sites will turn the lights on from 7 p.m, more than a dozen places, including Federation Square, Flinders Street Station, the NGV, the MCG, Amy Park and Rod Laver Arena. Now, while Melbourne lights up, this event here will begin shortly afterwards at 7:30. The United with Israel event also being live streamed. Security is tight. Police say they will be keeping a close eye on all gatherings. Pete?
Okay, thank you, Penny. Penelope Leash reporting.